Hey friends, Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I've been having some fun this week with the 2016 Range Rover Sport, as you can tell. But this isn't just any Range Rover Sport. This is the new TD6, the turbo diesel option now available in North America. And that puts this SUV in a very small class of competitors because Volkswagen, Audi, and Porsche, they all get benched this year for cheating on the game. So if you're looking for a diesel SUV, there are very few choices right now, so it never hurts to have a new one. So we're going to take it out and put it through some paces today, see what makes it a Range Rover, but also see what this new turbo diesel brings to the game. You've already seen it muddy and dirty in our opening segment, and you'll see more of that in a few moments, but it would be uncivilized to start out the review with nothing less than a showroom clean and detailed Range Rover Sport, given its as-tested price tag of $86,000. Ours here is a top-level HSE trim with several option packages and individual options that add a number of visual upgrades to its form, which we first saw as a 2014 model. Here we have 20-inch alloy wheels, bright xenon headlamps with LED signature lighting, and lots of off-road oriented fascia trims to dress it up nice. Optioned here is a two-tone treatment with a Santorini black roof that offers a subtle contrast to its chorus gray exterior paint. It highlights Range Rover's sporting silhouette, which is anchored by a substantial roof spoiler at the rear. Setting the Range Rover Sport apart from many of its competitors like the Mercedes-Benz GLE, the BMW X5 and others is its all-aluminum body structure, which saves several hundred pounds. This allows it slightly larger dimensions than some while weighing in slightly less. With all of its optional packages and equipment, the cabin of the Range Rover Sport is lined with acres of Cirrus soft trims, ebony leather seating, and dark gray oak veneers, all framed handsomely with satin aluminum finish trims. Front seats are power adjusted, heated, and ventilated for both the driver and passenger. The driver gets memory settings for the seating, mirrors, and the power telescoping and tilting steering wheel. That wheel features well laid out controls for the instrument cluster display and the infotainment system. Its center stack is laid out clean and simple with the infotainment screen up high but within reach. Hard controls for most used features fall below it, and on the center console you'll find an electronic shifter and hidden cup holders along with a terrain select and air suspension controls. As ours was optioned with a Terrain Response 2 system, there were additional controls for the 2-speed transfer case. Ours was also optioned with a console-mounted cooler which can hold up to 4 bottles of water, keeping them very cold. While our interior was dark by the shade of its ebony leather and option black headliner, the panoramic roof lets in a great deal of light to keep it airy. A fixed panel is standard on the HSC, but optioned here was a power opening front panel. Your rear seat passengers are going to enjoy plenty of space back here. As you can see, I've got these seats about halfway forward, halfway back, plenty of room to spare. I'm about 5'8", 5'9", so plenty of leg room, plenty of headroom here, even with this panoramic roof. Now, I will point out this seat cushion's a little bit on the low side. My knees are perched up here just a little bit, and these are firm seats, so there's not a lot of support in that way, but you do have some adjustments here. The seat back does have a rake adjustment. And if you get the third row version of this does slide fore and aft, but it's fixed here in the 5-passenger version like I've got. There are a few niceties back here. Here we've got a fold-down armrest that has also a little storage area in there. So if you've got kids or passengers with devices, cords, things like that, sort of a nice deal. In this particular version, there's also heated seats back here, very nice, and the holy grail for me, HVAC vents, which I would expect here in this price range, but very important here in Arizona when it gets hot. The rear seats fold forward in a 60-40 split for a semi-flat load floor with a single pull of a lever. The cargo area is lined as expected with some high-quality materials, and there is a 12-volt power source at the rear. As ours was optioned with the trailer towing package, we found under the cargo floor a full-size spare tire, not the temporary kind found on most. This is a must option in my opinion. Also note that if you get the third row seat option, you only get an emergency inflator. You know, I have to say, whenever I find an interior that pushes my buttons like this one does aesthetically, I'm smitten, and I am smitten with this interior. I just love the way it looks, and most importantly, it has excellent fit and finish and high quality materials. The wood has a wonderful grain to it. It's even got a nice touch to it, and the leather, of course, of a very high quality. One of the things I have to point out for this brand is that they give you a lot of choices in here too. So if this color combination isn't of your liking, you can choose a lot of different ways of having this done. You can
have less contrast with a monotone interior, be it this color or rich tans, blacks. You can also choose your wood color, and they also offer variations in your headliner color too. So if you don't like this dark look, you can lighten it up with a light gray. So they do give you a lot of ways to customize it since you're spending the money. So overall, not only is it comfortable, it's well designed, but you can have it your way, which is why it earns 5 stars here.
The infotainment system in ours was upgraded to the 19-speaker 825-watt Meridian sound package. You can go further with 1700 watts and 23 speakers, but I was exceptionally impressed with what it has. Now, there isn't yet Apple CarPlay or Android functionality here yet, and its user interface had a pretty moderate learning curve. It did, however, work quite well once I got to know it. Other technologies included driver assistance features like lane departure warning and forward collision warning, along with parking assist and many others. They work well and could be customized in their operation, all contributing to a technology score of 4 or 5 stars. Moving on to the big news for the Range Rover Sport is the new for 2016 3-liter turbo diesel V6. While it offers the least horsepower of its engine choices at 254, its torque more than makes up for the difference at 443 pound-feet. That's more than the supercharged gasoline V6 and nearly as much as the supercharged V8s that you can get in the Range Rover. And here it also comes mated to the very well behaved 8-speed automatic transmission that sends power out to all 4 wheels.
Whew. That is one of the benefits of a diesel engine, especially up here on a mountain road like this, is you get lots of torque, which helps you roll up these hills without having to really push into that accelerator pedal. And when you do push into the accelerator pedal, you get a nice lunge, you get a nice push in the back that makes you feel like you've got a lot of power. But because it is a diesel, most of that torque you're feeling is by way of the turbochargers. Not necessarily because you're dumping fuel into the engine, which is why it gets good fuel economy. Now, as you can tell, it's barely making any noise. This is a very quiet diesel engine, especially at low RPMs like this where we're just sort of crawling up these hills at about 1500 RPM. It just really isn't working that hard.
And because it moves a Range Rover Sport along without working that hard, it can deliver an EPA estimated 22 mpg city, 29 mpg highway, and 25 mpg combined, while also accelerating from 0 to 60 in just over 7 seconds. In my time with it, I was able to achieve exactly as promised, 25 mpg combined city and highway, and that includes the mountain and off-road driving for the test. This is impressive, which contributes to its powertrain score at 5 of 5 stars.
Now, how is the handling up here? I am on a windy mountain road that has very rough pavement. And a lot of the SUVs that I bring up here don't really impress me that well when it comes to handling, because SUVs typically don't handle that well on windy roads to begin with. What I'm finding here is this actually has a pretty light feel, and it should. It's made of aluminum, so it does feel lighter and less heavy than a lot of SUVs. The steering has a nice communicative feel, and the combination of tires and wheels that they've put on this, along with the suspension tuning, this air suspension does a nice job of giving a pretty reasonably isolated ride from this rougher stuff. I'm not getting a lot of jitteriness that I get with some of the vehicles that have a live axle front and rear, because we do have a full independent suspension here. This just has a nice overall sharpness to it, and it's not getting unsettled going around some of these curves on this rough pavement.
The pavement is where most Range Rover drivers will remain, mostly buying this vehicle for its winter weather prowess. This explains why states like Colorado are some of the brand's largest markets, but for the true off-roader, it does offer a number of comprehensive systems that give it true capability beyond its black tie image. These include the patented terrain response system that can be set to manage traction, braking, and powertrain for a variety of different conditions. There's also an air suspension which can raise, increasing ground clearance substantially.
We're out here at this place I like to call my off-road test track. What it really is a little area here in the desert where there's a few little obstacles and things that it's really sort of a nice place to bring the more off-roady crossovers and SUVs out here that I test. So before we get going, the first thing I want to point out here is that this has a great screen right here that really shows what's going on with the four-wheel drive system. Now right now I have it in general mode. I do have it in off-road height. So the air suspension has us raised up so we're not going to drag the ground. So we're going to move forward here. And the first thing we're going to do over here is my one wheel up, one wheel down test. And what this does, it's a mogul ride over here that gets the front wheel off the ground, one of them, and one of the rear wheels off the ground or with very little traction to where we're sort of teeter-tottering. And it's a real big challenge because it forces the four-wheel drive system to put all the power to one wheel over here and one wheel on the opposite side at the back. It is child's play for most SUVs like this, but you'd be surprised at which ones out there actually don't do this very well. So what we're going to do here on this particular instance is I am going to put this in four-wheel low by pressing the button here, and then I'm also going to put it in rock mode over here on the terrain management selector. So we are now all locked up, and as you can see here, the icon has changed there and indicating that we're in a much more DEFCON 5 state when it comes to traction. So I'm just going to ease up here in this little section here until I can feel that I have the situation here. Okay, all right, here we are. Now we're teetering literally here. Now what I'm going to do is apply power. That wheel over there is off the ground, and the one back here behind me on my left is just off the ground, but it has no traction. It's really just hanging there. So I'm just going to apply power lightly here. It locks and it just pulls straight out. Now quite frankly folks, this is child's play for this thing. If it didn't do that, I'd be disappointed. I am going to now take it out of four-wheel low, and I'm just going to come over here to rutted mud mode because we've got some mud ruts to play in here. Here we go. Let's give this a whirl. Now as we're headed over to the mud hole section, one thing I'll point out here is that this has a very tight turning circle. And the other thing too is going down hills and sort of crawling along like this, this diesel does a nice job of just keeping you going slow. So here we go through the mud, and that wasn't too challenging, but you could feel it adjusting the traction just a little bit to get us through there. Now we're just going to go through that one more time on the way out of here, just for fun, because mud's fun, right? You have an SUV like this, mud's fun. Woo! All right, now that I've just done that, there is one thing I do want to show you because it's a very cool feature of this vehicle. All right, this is something I just got to show you. I just drove this thing through the mud. It's dripping wet right now. Now, you'll notice down here on the door sill, there's no mud, there's nothing wet. The way this is designed, these doors actually wrap down over the lower sill, so it keeps this area clean. And what that means is, since this is an upscale vehicle, you can still wear nice dress shoes, nice dress pants, or if you're a lady, you can wear a skirt. You can get in and out of this after driving through the mud to the prom without getting dirty. That's pretty neat. One thing I always do with a crossover sport utility vehicle is I bring it out here to the desert washboard road, because even more than the hardcore off-roading, this road right here with its rough and ribbed surface can vibrate and make even some of the best off-road vehicles on the planet feel like less than their price tag. And so bringing this out here is especially important because this is one of the most expensive sport utilities you can buy. And so I want to see how well it does. So what I'm finding out is the suspension, especially this air suspension, does a very good job of absorbing a lot of the rough stuff here and it just gives you a nice, soft, rubbery sort of ride out here. The steering and the suspension, not getting any shuddering, not any vibration through it. It's delivering me a chassis experience that's just as tight, just as solid as you'd expect here. Now, what I am getting out here is a little bit of shuddering and shaking in the interior trims. And part of that, this panoramic roof is to blame, because they almost always reduce a little bit of the structural integrity, and they almost always, well, there's a big hole up there in the roof, and so there's a lot of trim and a lot of pieces around that tend to now be able to flex and rattle. But the good news is it's just surface level interior trims. It's not the chassis. This thing's delivering up a nice solid ride, a nice handling experience out here, and one that's well befitting of its price tag.
As this is the top end for off-road SUVs, this is the standard by which all others should be measured, so it's a good thing it actually delivers on its promise of capability out here in the gritty world where Toyotas and Jeeps typically rule. Its chassis is solid and robust while offering a comfortable existence when you're flying through the rough, but most importantly for the 99%, it also rides in a very quiet and civilized manner on the highway and around town. The chassis scores in at 5 of 5 stars. When it comes to quality, craftsmanship is always where the English brands have been expected to excel. We have these images of artisans hand-polishing wood and stitching fine hides. The reality has sometimes and sometimes not lived up to those visions, however. In the case of the modern Range Rover, the paint finish and body panel alignment were exquisite. Interior fit and finish and the quality of the materials also impressed. The only area where questions arose was the intermittent rattles and the shakes brought on by the rough road at speed. Still, the Range Rover Sport earns 4 or 5 stars in quality feel.
Well folks, wrapping it up for the Range Rover Sport TD6, I was very much impressed. That diesel engine really puts together a nice package with this, so not only do you get the capability and the luxury, you get a little bit of efficiency too, as well as that heavy-duty feeling that a diesel brings. So I like it so much, in fact, that I'd actually buy it. It goes on our I'd buy it list for 2016. So here's some of the reasons why. Now this one right here, we're priced at $86,000 and some change. You can spend more on this, but you can get into this for right around the mid-60s if you don't add all the options and go up to the HSE trim grade. But that said, the fuel economy is really a big seller as well. We're at 25 mpg is what I observed. That includes all the off-roading you saw as well as that mountain driving. So it's always great when you can actually use a vehicle like this the way it was meant to be used and still get the fuel economy the window sticker promises. I really like that. So overall, I put value at 5 stars, even though it's really tough to sort of put a good value on a luxury product, because a lot of times you are spending up for a brand, but here it is backed up with a lot of quality and engineering and capability. So when you put that 5-star value in with everything else we've already talked about, we've got a total rating for this test drive at 4.5 stars. Very good. I'm Sam Haymart for Test Driven TV. I hope you enjoyed the ride. A little personal story. Several years ago, actually over 10 years ago now, I was actually pretty close to buying a Range Rover, and back then they were still powered by the BMW V8, so it had a very refined powertrain. But the thing was, I was torn between it and a Hummer H2. Now I know some of you people out there, especially the Range Rover purists, are going, what? Because those two vehicles were from complete opposite worlds. They couldn't have been more different, yet they were both on my shopping list. And unfortunately, the thing that actually made the decision for me was usually what should never make the decision, and that was money. And it wasn't about the price to buy them. They were actually pretty close, but what it was is back then they had that SUV tax break, the big truck for your business tax break, where if you bought a big huge truck or an SUV for your business, you could write off, oh gosh, I think it was somewhere around $5,000 off your income taxes. Back then I made a lot more money than I do as an auto journalist, and being able to write $5 grand off my income tax with a little check mark was enough incentive to push me over the edge. But I have to tell you, I always wondered what life would have been like with a Range Rover instead of the Hummer. And don't get me wrong, I loved the Hummer. I really enjoyed that vehicle a lot, but I would have very much just enjoyed the Range Rover, albeit for different reasons. Anyway, If you like the test drive you just saw, click on the link right here on your screen and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We test drive one, sometimes two vehicles every week, plus we have a new video almost every day. There's always something new. So stay tuned.